Do you have Ancestry in Edgecombe County, North Carolina? Do you know where all the resources are available for genealogists? Where do you start? What's online? Do you need to visit Edgecombe County in order to get all of what you need? Well, I had the same questions when I sat down with Monika Fleming, the program director of historic preservation at Edgecombe County Community College. She was a wealth of information and had the answers to everything I asked. In fact, she had so much information I had to break this interview into two parts. So, the first part talks a lot about the records and where to find things, and the second part talks a little bit more about the records, but really gets into the history of the area, where we discussed all of the major wars, the flu epidemic, the railroads, the migration patterns, all the way back to the early settlers. This is all good information that every genealogist who's researching the area should know. Both episodes are jam-packed with information, so make sure you watch them all the way through so that you don't miss anything. Also, I wrote a very detailed set of notes for every resource and web link that we discussed, and I put them in the show notes below. You can also get a copy of those show notes by signing up for the NC Ancestry newsletter. There is a link for that in the show notes as well, right at the top. Now, you can also get all that information at ncancestry.com on the Edgecombe County page. To find that page, just click on the County by County tab at the top of the screen and then scroll down to Edgecombe County. All right, did I forget anything? NC Ancestry has a website. We talked about that. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Connie Knox. I am a lifelong genealogist here to help you go further, faster, and factually with your family research. I own NC Ancestry, which, as you know, is a YouTube channel and a website, but I also have Genealogy TV, where I focus on sharing resources for all genealogists at all levels. Subscribe to both channels. Genealogy TV has a Facebook page, too. Come join the conversation and like the page, so that you can follow all the fun. And now on to that interview with Monika Fleming. Well, welcome to the show. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to tell genealogists about Edgecombe County. So let me ask you, if a researcher is searching in Edgecombe County, and we're looking specifically for Edgecombe County records, what's available, online or offline?
Okay. The first place you want to go is the Edgecombe County Memorial Library on Main Street in Tarboro. We have a local history room. We have a dedicated historian for that room. Our name is Pam Edmondson, and she has lots of archival material. She has photographic material, and she has been for the past few years uploading some of this to Digital NC. So it's not arranged by topic, you know, it's just photographs and things uploaded, but there's a lot of material there. Second place we have, of course, is the Register of Deeds office, where you can find deeds, marriage records, death records, land records. Those are at the Register of Deeds office, which is relocated. That used to be in the courthouse. A few years ago, after one of the floods we had, they've moved all those records out of the courthouse, and they're on the third floor of the county administration building. And they are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And once a year, they're open at night for our Genealogy Society. They actually let us come in and work after hours. So if you're a member of our society or join our Facebook page, our Edgecombe County Genealogical Society Facebook page, you can actually find out when we're available at night to go to the Register of Deeds. We also have a lock-in library one night a year on a Friday night. So people coming in for a weekend to do research, you know, could stay late in the library on that night. And we have scheduled that next one in May. So people, we're having a festival and everything in May. So we're saying, well, if you come in early, you can spend part of Friday doing research if you want to, and then the festival the next day.
May is a great time of year to visit Tarboro too, and for those who've never been to Tarboro, the commons there are beautiful.
Yeah, they are, and that's what we're having. Is the happening on the common will be in May. The third place you can do some research in Edgecombe County is actually my office. I work at Edgecombe Community College, and I have a 200-year-old office called the Norfleet House, which was relocated to the campus and restored. And we have special records here focusing on cemeteries, Genealogy Society has published 4 books of cemetery records, but I actually have some of the original records and maps. We also, that's one of them, wonderful. Yes, we have those available. And all of them, I have them here in the office, plus I have an older one. I also have here the complete National Register of Historic Properties for Edgecombe County, as well as the Historic District in Tarboro. So I have architectural files on different houses, and I teach a course in house genealogy. And so we have the genealogy of houses, who lived in them, who them, that sort of thing. Not every house, but a lot. And we can teach people how to find that. And because I have records, there was an architectural survey done. We can actually show people on maps where some of their ancestors may have lived. So we have some of those records here in my office. So that's available by appointment. I'll even sometimes come out on weekends because I do teach weekend classes doing that. So if people are interested in cemeteries, or they're interested in houses and architecture and the structures that their family may have lived in. And another place I'm going to suggest is the Facebook page, which I know you're familiar with, Yesteryear in Tarboro, which it's a collection of people who love to post old photographs. And they have been posting some of businesses, schools. There's all kinds of good stuff out there that Randy has been putting out. We're really thankful for his website. And I work with him on some of that, trying to identify the places. But that's a good place to look for photographs of people and places.
There has been some really great little mini stories and great newspaper articles and photographs and all kinds of stuff on that Facebook website. I'm hoping somebody's capturing that stuff and archiving it somewhere.
I'm trying to capture some of it. And that's another thing I'll mention. I have written 5 books on Edgecombe County history. And so, you're going to surprise me. You have some of them. Yes.
I do. And you know what? Full disclosure, I didn't realize they were your books. I was pulling them off the shelf and I went, oh, look who the author of that is. Look.
Well, those 2 in particular are created using a lot of files at our library that we were able to save. We are fortunate in the library to have some digital images. We found some scrapbooks from the 1890s. And they have been digitized and are on the library, the Edgecombe County Library website. But I included some of those, and everything in those books, I tried to credit the source as to where you can find the original photographs.
And I will leave links in the show notes for anybody watching how to get a hold of those books. Those will be, you just have to click on for the viewers at home, you have to click on the show more little button underneath this video on the YouTube channel, and you can find links to that. I also found this one on my shelf.
Yes, that is Mabry Bass. He was the editor of the local paper for about 40 years. And that is a collection of his columns. And there's juicy little stories in there. For example, I found out that there used to be some cannonballs in the front yard of my house. And my husband wanted to find out what happened to them. And we had to talk to some neighbors and things and found out they were stolen.
I'm not surprised.
Mabry mentions them in one of his columns. So the only problem with that book, it's not indexed, but it's got wonderful little stories about Tarboro life. Another place I would suggest people look at, of course, the State Archives in Raleigh, but consider East Carolina University Archives, because they have special collections, and a lot of families have donated some of their papers to East Carolina. And even if your family didn't, your family might be included in some other family papers. For example, the Bridgers family papers are there. The Winslow family papers are there. And the Winslow papers is like 18 boxes of letters and documents and photographs. He used to sell, Mr. Winslow used to sell mules. And so there's all kinds of contracts and things in there about who bought a mule or who bought a horse or things like that. And so there's some fascinating, and those records are at East Carolina. So if you come to the area, you might want to consider making a trip over, or you can check online first to see what they have, but you might want to consider making a trip over to East Carolina. It's only 30 miles away, and checking their special collections, because they have some good stuff too.
So a person could easily spend a couple days in the area touring around. I know there's some beautiful historic cemeteries there as well.
Yes.
For which the Genealogical Society has created multiple volumes of this book.
Right.
I noticed that they are on sale right now, too.
Yes, if you contact us, our address and everything is on our Facebook page, and you can contact us. And we have published 4 of those, and depending on which volume, they're either $25 or $30 a piece. But we're having a sale this month and probably next month. It'll end in February, where you can get all 4 volumes for $90. Normally, that would be $110, and then we'll include free shipping if you get 4 volumes. So.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I've got one. I've got this one. This one is Greenwood Cemetery, because my husband's family is all buried there, a bunch of them.
We have one that's just church cemeteries, volume 2, and that one has Calvary Church. You mentioned a beautiful cemetery. Calvary is an Episcopal church which has graves dating in it from the 1830s up to the present. And then we have surveyed as many of the church cemeteries in the county as we could find. And we have published all of those. And we have a photograph and maps in the book so people can actually find information about the churches and the church cemeteries. Now, some of the church records don't exist anymore, but some of those have also been taken to East Carolina, those that we did find.
And for the viewers at home, I know that not all of these cemeteries are on Find a Grave or Billion Graves. So these books have been wildly beneficial to me personally. Here's another jewel I found on the shelf you might find interesting.
Oh, yes. First Baptist Church, which is our second oldest church. Our Primitive Baptist Church is much older, that people started with. That one dates to 1819. But that's
all kinds of great stuff in it.
We also have a published history of Howard Memorial Church, which is a Presbyterian church. And we also have the St. James Methodist Church actually has some of their original church records, marriages, baptisms, things. That church had a fire in 1915, but they saved the records book. So they still have those from earlier. So that's very nice to go in and be able to look at the actual marriage records. Calvary Church, the Episcopal Church, has their marriage records. So we are fortunate to have some very good records here in the county.
Let me ask you this, because I know, and I was there during the big flood. I think that was Hurricane Floyd. Was it
99, September of 99, yes.
Yes, ma'am. I had gone there to evacuate Wilmington to stay with my mother-in-law, who was living there at the time. And boy, I remember it going underwater. Did we lose any of those valuable records? You said the records had been moved out of the courthouse.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did lose some things, but all the deeds, marriage, birth, and death records were saved. All of those had been in the basement of the courthouse.
Uh-huh.
Court records, there were things like divorce records, some court cases, some criminal records. Those were in the basement. After the flood, state archives came and put those in a truck and sent them somewhere, and because they were soaked and had been down there. And so we lost, but mainly what we lost was current criminal records and like some divorce records and things, not the vital records. Those were all, bless the people of the local clerk of courts, Register of Deeds office. They hand carried 1,500 volumes of those deed books up 3 flights of stairs and put them in the courthouse on the courthouse was on the 3rd floor. So they carried them from the basement to, and you know how big the Register of Deeds books, the land books
yes.
are. They carried 1,500 of those upstairs and stacked them up in the courthouse. So they were not damaged during the flood. But afterward, the county decided they needed to be in another place, which is why they've moved them to the 3rd floor of another building. And that's much better. So we don't think
that was an incredible flood. I remember being there, and I remember going to the edge of the water downtown and looking at all those buildings underwater and all those homes underwater and people getting in kayaks to go check on their homes.
Yes.
That was part
That's the worst thing.
That's part of your history too. Huh?
In the 20th century, that was the worst. We'd had other floods, but that was the worst. 40 to 50% of the town was underwater at one time. But as we say, we're fortunate. A lot of the records were saved. Businesses closed, but most of them have reopened. When Matthew came just 2 years ago in 2016, unfortunately, Matthew caused additional damage to the courthouse, but not as much to some of the other buildings. Princeville, the neighboring town just across the river, was damaged.
Oh, I forgot about that, yes.
Process of rebuilding.
Now, we just went through Hurricane Florence. Did you guys have any problems with Florence?
No. Florence left us some rain. Not a lot, not enough to flood. We were so thankful. Florence, sorry for what happened in Wilmington, but we are so thankful that nothing came up this way. We were on the outer edges.
Well, that's a blessing. Good. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you, I do want to kind of get into a brief history of the area, but for those watching, as far as the county borders go, I'm going to put up a map of how the county borders change. But there is a great reference for anybody who is looking for, and I'm going to try and share it here real quick. What's it called? Mapofus.org has a great, almost an animated thing where you can see the borders change and stuff. But Edgecombe County has so many border changes.
8 different counties have been cut out of Edgecombe since it was established in 1741. And so when people contact me and they say, well, my family was born in Edgecombe in 1750, I go, well, they may have been in Edgecombe then, but that may not be Edgecombe now, because there's lots of changes.
Yeah, let me share my screen here real quick.
Okay.
You're seeing it now? That's the Edgecombe County.
The current county. Yes,
that's correct.
Yes.
But what I wanted to point out was this website here. If people go to this and then scroll down, there is a great little, I love this little thing where you can step through and watch the borders change for the state of North Carolina. Again, that is mapofus.org. And
that's a wonderful source.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will tell you is that it doesn't cover every year. For example, when you just showed that, it had Edgecombe and Granville as separate, but Granville actually came out of Edgecombe. So if, Edgecombe was formed in 41, and then in 47, Granville comes out, and then Granville was cut up later into Granville and Vance, and then there was a Butte County, and Butte County was a part of Edgecombe. It was cut out, and it's gone, and that became Franklin and some other county, I can't remember, Warren possibly. And so, the early 1740, 50, 60 records could be anywhere now. Halifax was cut out in 58. Nash was cut out in 1777. And Wilson was cut out in 1850. So, and then there's some little border changes that came, like in 1871, the border between Nash and Rocky Mount changed a little bit. So yeah, there, as you said, there's a lot of changes of borders.
Well, one of the points that I want to make for the genealogists at home is I, for one, my husband's family was on the border of Edgecombe and Martin County. Mm-hmm. And over the years, while they didn't move, some of their records are in Martin County and some of them are in Edgecombe County because the border kept hopping over them.
Yes.
And their little farm there. So,
and there's a good book by a guy named Corbett that talks about the formation of North Carolina counties, and he explains all the different little border changes. Yeah, it's a good one. It's printed old, but it's still good.
And I'm slowly on my website, the ncancestry.com website, I'm slowly building out all those counties. And there is a list of all the counties on that website that even don't exist. I mean, like, I've tried to get every county because there are several counties that names just don't exist anymore. So
and Dobbs and some of those, yeah, they're gone.
Yeah. So as long as we're talking about maps,
okay.
I found this little jewel on my shelf yesterday. I picked this up at one of the, I don't know if you can see that or not. Hang on, let me get it up here.
That's Gray's map, 1882 of Tarboro. And it shows the downtown development and it shows buildings. Now, our first Sanborn map, another great type of map, is not that complete. Our first Sanborn map is only 2 blocks, so that's showing a much larger area. Those are available for sale at the library for $5.
Ooh, the Sanborn maps?
No, that little gray.
Oh, this map, yes.
Yes.
This is a great map. I love this era of maps. I find them a lot in different towns. And the cool part about them for the researcher is some of the names are on there, like, you know.
Yes. They will tell you who owned what properties or what stores may have been there. And we actually have another one that's in the Register of Deeds office that is from the 1850s, that same area, with actual name of every, it's not for sale, it's just one copy that's up there at the Register of Deeds, but it's got the name of whoever owned that particular property on the map. So that's helpful that we have that one.
Another reason to go to Edgecombe County, right? So where did you say that was again?
That's in the Register of Deeds office, which is in the county, 3rd floor of the county administration building.
And there's no reproductions of that?
No, it's a hand-drawn map that we found in a file one day. And
wow, somebody should photograph it.
Up there. I have a small photograph of it, but I don't have the complete. Oh, you have our county map? I bet. Yes. There's a wonderful story about that. I don't know if it's true. That map is a county map in 1905, and it's very detailed. It has cemeteries, it has churches, it has schools. And the story we were told is that the cartographer who was sent here for the survey for that fell in love with a local girl and was courting her and was trying to convince her to marry him. And he kept delaying turning in the map so he could stay here longer with her. And so he kept adding more detail. So we have some county maps of nearby counties, but they're not nearly as detailed as that one because he went to every little crossroads and every little community, and it's got the names of each little family. And
that is hilarious.
It is. If you look,
it does have all the railroads on here, and I will try and photograph that.
Now that is online at the UNC Map Collect, North Carolina Maps at UNC. They have a big map in there, and that one is scanned in there.
Beautiful. Well, there are some good maps, and that helps people figure out the logistics. And one of the things, to go back to that other map of downtown where it shows the names of people, one of the things that I like to do is go to the census.
Yes.
And try and match a census as close as I can to the date on this map was, I think.
This is 1882 for that map.
Yes, yes.
So the 1880 census would be wonderful to try to shop. Yes.
I have done that in other towns. I have not done it in this town, but yeah.
And what's interesting too is in that map, we had, Tarboro had the second Jewish synagogue in North Carolina. And starting in the 1850s, we actually had Jewish immigrants coming into town, and they built a synagogue here in the late 1880s. And the first one was in Wilmington, and I understand that was damaged during your hurricane. But anyway, I've been working with them and with other people about Jewish history. And so we have records and information about a lot of the Jewish families in this region, which is unusual type research.
Awesome.
Oh, yes.
Well, I have, to transition to newspapers, I have another jewel over here.
Uh-oh. What's that?
Now this is
Bicentennial Edition.
An unopened.
Okay, that is from the Tarboro 1960. That's when the town turned 200 years old. And yes, that is on microfilm, and I do have a copy of that here in my office. And speaking of which, in my office, because a lot of records, Edgecombe County had one of the first newspapers. We started in 1824, and we continued all the way up till that's the Daily Southerner.
Yep.
We continued all the way up through 2014. The Southerner was in operation for almost 190 years, or over that. But anyway, from 1824 to 2014. Y'all figure the math. I'm not good with math. Anyway, that particular paper has been digitized partially on Digital NC, and also part of it is on Chronicling America. We do have microfilm copies, and when the newspaper closed in 2014, they donated to the Norfleet House original issues from the 1890s and early 1900s, and the complete printing that we have in existence. These have been microfilmed. They're available on state, but I have the original, if you want to see the original, of the Civil War era in Edgecombe County.
Oh, nice.
From 1861 to 1865. What issues exist?
I was going to say, we're fortunate to have some issues, because I know in some of the areas that I've been researching, Randolph County being one, the paper shut down during the Civil War.
Right.
And there just aren't any. And so, and to me, I'm an absolute fanatic about paper research or newspaper research, because that's where the color is. That's where the stories are.
Yes. It's fascinating. And that's where I learn a lot of my history, is go back and reading these old newspapers. So we have original copies as well as the microfilm copies here.
I was doing some research last night just to find out where the newspapers are that are online for Edgecombe County, and I found the majority of them on Chronicling America. Newspapers.com has a fair amount, it looks like, and Genealogy Bank had some.
Yes.
So for those who are Chronicling America, for those who are not familiar, it's chroniclingamerica.loc. I'll put all those links in the show notes also.
Yeah, that Library of Congress has done, and those are searchable now by name. And so you can find lots of interesting things. I assign my students a lot of research on that. And you were mentioning matching up a map and a census. You did that in one of your earlier programs. I saw you do that, but I think it was for someplace out west.
It was Laramie, Wyoming. Yes.
Right. And that is very helpful to actually look at the names and then find them on a map and chart how the census takers went, because they didn't follow the path I wanted to. Like if I was doing a street, I'd go all the way down the street for 2 or 3 blocks. But no, they went, I read the instructions on one year of the census. My husband was a census taker in 2000. So I read the instructions, and they're told to go circle an entire block and then go to the next block and circle. So when you think they're neighbors, they may be on the other side of the block. They may be backdoor neighbors instead of side-by-side neighbors. You've mentioned before when doing census to copy pages on either side of the family, and that's why, because your next door neighbors, or if they lived across the street, might be several pages away, depending on how the census taker walked.
Well, and I'm always beating the drum about cluster research, or the friends, associates, and neighbors, the fan club type research. And you really have to do that census technique. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that video that you're referring to. Actually, there will be a flag right up here that'll pop up. And it talks about going forward and backwards from your family, like 10 pages, at least 5. In either direction, so that you're capturing all the neighbors and all of the other surnames that could be matching your family. But I also, I don't know if you saw the episode that I did where I show how to extract all that data.
Yes.
Put it into an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. That was a huge episode. I was surprised at how many people really hadn't thought of doing that. So it helps narrow down that cluster research really fast. And that way you can sort by surname. If you suddenly discover a new surname in your family, you can go back to that same document that you created and go, oh, now I need to look for Davis, or now I need to look for somebody else. So
yes.
Anyway, there are some other resources I found on Mars. There's manuscript collection, which for those who are not familiar with, Mars is the manuscript collection for North Carolina, I guess.
Yeah, it's the state archives runs that.
Right.
In Raleigh.
Well, there is a great start to your research in Edgecombe County. I met Monika at the North Carolina Genealogical Society conference in Raleigh this past year. I had been asking around about who was the expert in Edgecombe County, and everybody pointed to Monika, so I can see why. Okay, make sure you see part 2 of this conversation, where we talk more about the records, but also about the history of the area, and we share more stories and records important to genealogists researching in the surrounding counties as well. Don't forget to subscribe Like the video, share it please, and visit ncancestry.com. Until next time, keep on climbing your family tree.